Chapter 11. Du Sulang was only one when his mother threw him at the door of an orphanage. At that time he was still small, so his memory was limited. He didn't even remember the woman's appearance. He didn't know who his father was. The only thing the woman left him was a name and a black raven tattoo on his left shoulder. Later he found out that this raven was a symbol of J Country's largest underworld organization, the conglomerate. The orphanage wasn't a good place. There wasn't enough food. There was a constant increase in abandoned children crying piteously for food. Usually, in order to compete for cold steamed bun, they could break each other's bones. From age 1 to age 5, his body was always scarred, his stomach was always rumbling, and his heart was always hazy. But in that immoral place there was one ray of sunshine, illuminating him, allowing him to grit his teeth and support each day. That person was named Fang Nian Yu. She was 10 years older than him and always meticulously cared for him. Even though she was also starving, she would leave him her last bite of food. Du Sulang didn't know how warm a mother's embrace felt, but with Fang Nian Yu there, he felt like he'd already experienced it. In his last year at the orphanage, a woman named Lady Young donated a lot of money and sent new clothes and toys to all the orphans on New Year's Eve. Fang Nian Yu got a pink jacket. She wore it in front of him and spun around, saying how grateful she was to Lady Young. He got a Transformers, something he'd always wanted. He'd even thought to steal money from the dean's office to buy it. Now that someone had sent it to him, he was naturally very happy. Almost every night he slept with it in his arms. Not long after, Du family sent someone to find him. Du Sulang happily followed them to J Country. He thought that this was the beginning of his happy life, but he'd unknowingly stepped into hell. Du family children with no ability had only one way out: death. His brothers tore into each other like mad dogs, like insect larvae fighting for the soul's opportunity to live. On those countless ice-cold, reeking of blood nights, Fang Nian Yu's smile grew more and more vibrant, and his only toy had long been forgotten in the corner. When he finally secured the position of Du family's head, he at least had a chance to breathe. So he decided to put down all official business and travel to Sea Country to find his loved ones. What he found was Fang Nian Yu's son, Zhou Wenjing, in a small, messy clinic. He was beaten up, his nose was broken, and his pair of dark eyes were cloudy, not a trace of sunshine. Fang Nian Yu was the kind of woman who laughed, even when facing adversities. Why did his son become like this? Du Sulang was angry, and with Zhou Wenjing's account, his anger turned into overwhelming hostility. He didn't expect Fang Nianyu hadn't committed suicide because she was suffering from depression. In fact, she was harassed to death, dying in that harasser's bathtub. He didn't have to personally witness it. He could imagine the red and tragic scene. The Zhou family was truly wicked. He didn't try to persuade his nephew to leave with him. Since Zhou family treated his nephew so cruelly, he decided to help his nephew take over all of Zhou family. With a malicious but also mocking mind, he concealed his identity and accepted a job at Zhou clan. Soon won over Zhou Hao's trust. As a personal assistant, he had the qualifications to enter and leave the Zhou family's house. He began to secretly observe the other two Zhou family sons. Zhao Yunsheng was the oldest son. His character appeared very calm, and his studies was always ranked among the best. Zhou Wen'ang was 2 months younger than Wenjing. The youngest had a lively and cheerful personality and was most liked by Zhou Hao. Wenjing and Zhao Wen'ang had an okay relationship, but with Zhou Yunsheng it was like fire and water. But in Du Shulang's view, Zhou family's two children were not worthy. One's methods were clumsy and the other was honey-mouthed but black-hearted. They both had some smarts but no wisdom. On the contrary, Wenjing had a strong, forbearing character and a clever and sober mind, a foundation for something great. Du Sulang decided to take this lump of unpolished jade and sculpt it into a dazzling work of art. In the process of teaching, Zhou Yunsheng's frequently bullying made him very angry, making him want to teach the child a little lesson. But conversely, that child resolutely gave him a wake-up slap. If he hadn't harshly criticized him, if he hadn't shown his deep-seated hatred, maybe he would have never thought that Fang Yu's suicide wasn't a retaliation, but an atonement. His impression of Fang Yu's every moment was with a gentle smile. She was virtuous and beautiful. How could she be a bloodied, malicious spirit filled with bottomless hatred? He seemed to be wrong about the cause and effect, and also gravely mistaken. Until that moment, he'd never linked that Lady Yang who gave him a New Year's gift to Zhou Yunsheng's mother. He'd never investigated Zhou family. He should have realized, but it was as if a layer of fog was blinding his eyes, causing him to not see anything besides hate. But as Zhou Yunsheng said, did he and Wenjing have the qualifications to hate? The one who should hate was him all along. Perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of compensation. From that moment, he started wholeheartedly taking care of Zhou Yunsheng and secretly following all his actions. Slowly he learned that Zhou Yunsheng hated eating carrots, and when bored he'd caress his wrists. He was very proficient with the computer, and every day before going to bed he'd drink a glass of milk. He knew every little detail and small habit about his life, but he ignored the consequences such excessive concern could bring. In the end, Zhou and Ang acted against Wenjing, but Wenjing poured his hatred and rage on Yunsheng's head instead. Because of this, Du Sulang was very displeased. The more he paid attention to Yunsheng, the more he understood the forbearance and strength hidden under his impulsive character. Compared to him, Wenjing seemed pretty mediocre. He couldn't even find his real enemy. In the future, how could he move forward alone? In Du Shulang didn't alert him. Only people who have stumbled could learn to step over obstacles. He left Wenjing's room and then inexplicably arrived at Yunsheng's room door. They were separating soon. He unexpectedly felt some reluctance to part. Whenever Du Shulang thought he understood enough about the boy, he'd always bring him a greater surprise. He found out his strong cover-up and discovered the relationship between Wenjing's mother and himself. He also indirectly showed him his outstanding means and impartial attitude. Compared to Wenjing, who was still waiting to be sculpted, he was a ray of light, already ready to blossom. Du Sulang was brimming with expectations for his future, and it was more intense than his expectation for the fully cultivated Wenjing. He sent several bodyguards to secretly protect him, making them send back his movements and photos every other week. His concerns for him gradually formed into a type of habit. On this birthday he came back to his empty, quiet room, reeking of cologne and booze, and accidentally opened an email with a photo of Yunsheng. The boy was holding a chocolate ice cream cone. He'd stretched the tip of his tongue out to lick up a bit of sweetness. He seemed to have sensed that someone was secretly taking a photo of him. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes casting a sidelong glance, his lazy gaze containing hidden vigilance. That charming look, hooking heart and soul, passed through the computer screen to pierce Du Shulang's heart, his breath quickening. He foolishly stared at the screen for a long time. Then he finally called the boy. Are you free? Can we video chat? He requested, eager to see his face. The youth agreed. Hearing that today was his birthday, the youth thought about it, then opened up the music box on his desk. Using many rivets and screws, he assembled it into a transformer, only taking about half an hour. His expression was focused, his flexible fingers seemed as if they were creating another wonderful, brilliant world. Du Shulang unknowingly gawked too long, so the screen went into sleep mode, and only then did he snap out of the intense throbbing. The youth was very attentive, apparently noticing how much Du Shulang liked this gift. The next day, he sent an express package to the company. After opening the package, Du Shulang couldn't help but laugh. He played with it for a long time, before carefully placing it on the desk. Then, before leaving work, he carefully packed it into his briefcase to bring it back home. He first put it on a bookshelf, but felt that he couldn't see it at a glance, so he put it on his desk again. Then, before going to bed, he thought about it again and finally placed it on his bedside table. It was the second toy he received in his life, and it was his first birthday gift. He loved it. His contact with the juvenile gradually increased. As long as he was free, he would video call him, anxiously waiting for the youth's handsome face to appear at the other end. The boy was very busy. Even when on the phone, he was still writing programs. If Du Shulang didn't speak, he would be immersed in his own world, forgetting everything around him. In order to watch him longer, Du Shulang frequently, deliberately remained silent, then fascinatedly stared at the boy's earnest profile. He could watch him for hours without getting bored. His gaze was occasionally interrupted by an assistant or a secretary. But when he came back, after dealing with work, he found the boy still quietly sitting in the same position, his flexible fingers tapping the keyboard. It seemed like he would always be there, waiting for him to return. Du Shulang's heart jumped at the sudden idea. But gradually things went beyond his control. After inadvertently getting a glimpse of a flexible waist, slender straight legs, and a vague outline of a back, he would unexpectedly toss and turn in his sleep. After falling asleep with great difficulty, he'd wake up to the thrill of bone-eroding ecstasy. The throbbing in his body and heart couldn't fool anyone. After looking through the photos he'd collected over the years, he started to chase with almost no hesitation. Initially with a give-it-a-try attitude, soon with cautiousness and earnestness. Then only he took care of him. He'd sunk into a quagmire of love and couldn't escape, but he was suffering gladly. Sea Country Federal Prison. Zhou Wenjing was sitting in front of the visiting window, anxiously smoking, when a patrolling prison guard came over and snapped at him to snuff it out. He thought of Zhou Yunsheng, who was always fond of ordering his uncle to put out his cigarettes. Uncle would always compromise with a slightly helpless and joyful expression. He obviously enjoyed being ordered around by Zhou Yunsheng. Zhou Wenjing pinched off his cigarette with a sneer. At this time, a skinny, black-faced man was escorted by prison guards to the seated. If it wasn't for his tag reading Zhou Wenang, Zhou Wenjing would have almost not recognized that this person was the once high-spirited Zhou family's third son. "How are you doing?" Zhou Wenjing dully asked, but the other side didn't answer. He continued speaking. "Today, Zhou Yuncheng and Du Shulang are getting married. In a few days, you should be able to see the news reports on the television." This finally got a reaction. Weeping bitter tears, he yelled, "Wenjing, please speak to Big Brother for me. Let him get me out. I know I was wrong. As long as he's willing to get me out, even if he wants me to be his slave, I'd do it. Wenjing, please help me. I can't stand it anymore. These people are simply not human. They've exhausted every means to torture me." Zhou Wenjing didn't have the patience to listen any longer. He growled in dissatisfaction. "You want to compromise like this? You want to give up like this? Zhou Wenang, you're really fucking useless." Throwing away the handset, Zhou Wenjing strode out of the prison. His stuffy chest not only didn't ease up, it actually became heavier. Over the years, his sailing hasn't been very smooth. Without Du Sulang's protection, he no longer felt omnipotent in the business world. Instead, because of his hostility with Zhou Yunsheng, he was ridiculed by everyone and often crowded out and suppressed. He thought about fighting back, but clashing with Noah Group, that colossal, was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. Not to mention that the other side had Du conglomerate's backing. A few days ago, he tried to bid for a project with the Noah subsidiary company, but after the bidding opened, his secretary sold it at a base price to a company that was hostile to him. Before the war started, he had already suffered a crushing defeat. He never felt so small, so helpless. Those words he'd said wasn't scolding Zhou Wen'ang, he was scolding himself. In this life, he would never be able to catch up to Zhou Yunsheng. Deep inside, he had the feeling he wasn't supposed to be so useless. Zhou Yunsheng's current position should have been his. He wondered what made the world get so defective.